we invited you today to brief you on the implementation, on the agreement, not on the agreement, but on the process, on the peace process. And with that, I welcome His Excellency, the Chairman of the delegation, to come and give you a word, after which we will start our presentation.
Is it still morning or?
It's afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, good afternoon. As you are aware, we have been negotiating with the opposition group. Different parties, and that meeting was held in Nairobi. And we have reached, and what has been agreed between us and the opposition. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Sudan, General Salva Kiir Mayardit, have come to the conclusion, and he has decided not to leave anybody behind. South Sudan is good for all of us, and therefore, nobody should be left behind. What we have agreed in Nairobi with the oppositions is trust and confidence building measures. That is a protocol by itself. Economic recovery and management, which means we will have the accountability in the economy. Judiciary reform, transitional justice, and accountability. Fourth, permanent ceasefire, security arrangement, and reform. 5, humanitarian assistance. And the rest are pending, and we are still negotiating. We are almost to reach an agreement with the opposition. After we have got our independence in 2005, 2 years later, we fought each other. And again, in 2016, there was fighting also. We asked ourselves, as the people of South Sudan, how long do we have to fight? That has to come to an end, because we are one people, and it cannot continue forever. That is the reason why the President of the Republic had decided to end the infighting which has been going on in a different part of the countries. Therefore, my colleagues are here to answer different questions in regard to the peace initiative in Nairobi. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Albino. In fact, the main objective of calling you for this press conference is to, one, talk to you about the wild rumors that are being spread all over South Sudan about the peace process. Number two, to keep you informed about the peace process. To start with, a lot of stories and wild rumors have been moving here in South Sudan, saying the delegation in Nairobi has dropped the presidency, Rais ma Nuabito Kulu Machine, the Wahid, Nimretnen. Our delegation in Nairobi has even dropped the R access, which is the agreement of 2018. Nimra Talata Beto, they have agreed that there will be set up a lean government comprised of 19 ministries. The Al-Hajjah has been agreed that the parliament will be downsized to 179 members. And so many other stories. All these things these are why rumors that have been moving here in South Sudan. And this has poisoned the mind of the citizen. It has poisoned the mind of the citizen, and this is why we came here today to explain to you as to what it is. All that you have heard, these are positions presented by the opposition. When we started the negotiations, presentations were made, and these presentations were made by the opposition included all these. Our position, we did not talk about them. Because when we went for the negotiations, there was a gentleman's agreement that we should not be negotiating through the media, and that we should not expose or send to the social media whatever position or whatever information about the peace process. This is why if you have been following all the time, we have only been talking about the progress being made and promising the people of South Sudan that peace is coming. But we have never one day touched any of the positions. The opposition on their side did not abide by that, and they continued to send in all these positions in the social media. And the people of South Sudan have been interacting with all this. We have come to you today to tell you that all these were positions and they are now out of existence. They have become stories of the past. They have become stories of the past because the agreement, the current agreement which you are implementing, is the basis of the peace talks. And whatever agreement that will be reaching is an agreement for the operationalization and implementation of the current agreement. It's not a new agreement so that we throw out the old one. The agreement, what we are negotiating now, is how best can we strengthen implementation mechanisms. How best can we implement the implementation mechanisms so that we implement the agreement? So people should not be carried away by what is usual in the social media. And when we came last time here, I stated this, that the people of South Sudan, please, don't follow whatever appears in the social media. And we have come today to confirm that all that was appearing in the social media and that was believed by the people of South Sudan was the position of the opposition by then. And this is normal. All these were negotiating positions. Negotiation positions are not final. But we have almost finalized them now, and they are out of question. There is no lean government that will be set up. The parliament will remain in place. The presidency will be as it is, and so forth. The executive will remain as it is, and so forth. So that is for your information. All that was being said was the negotiating position of the executive, and they are at present nowhere to be seen. That is one. Number two, in the course of our negotiations, as I stated earlier, we are only negotiating in order to strengthen the implementation mechanisms. We have found two things in the implementation of the current agreement. One are weak institutions for the implementation. 2, lack of funding. These are the 2 reasons that we have managed to identify. Being the government and the opposition, as negotiators, we have identified these issues as the main or at the root causes of the non-implementation of the agreement. So we have to address these 2 issues. These issues are not implemented because some of the provisions, we say weak institutions because there are some provisions in the agreement that do not even need money, but they have not been implemented. Yes, there are some provisions that need money, and these provisions have not been implemented or are partially implemented. To resolve that, we agreed to improve on the implementation mechanisms so that they can implement this agreement in letter and spirit. And to do that, we must strengthen these mechanisms. And these mechanisms will be inclusive of the opposition groups which are there now with whom we are negotiating. Because they are saying, you are not serious in the implementation. We said, as of now, if you agree, we will accommodate you, will be included in all these mechanisms so that you participate in the implementation, and in case of any failure, you will know where the problem is. So we have accepted to include them in the implementation mechanisms. We have also accepted to include them in the security sector, defense and security sector, because their forces have to be incorporated. This is already there. Of course, the army which we have now, or the government and whatever we have now, all these are mechanisms of the agreement. The government we have is the government of the agreement. The army we have is an army of the agreement. All the other defense or security forces are security forces of the agreement. On the security side, we have come up with a mechanism that will be inclusive. The SDSR board, which is the body supposed to come out with the policies that will be inclusive of all the mechanisms of the security. We have decided to call it the security board, which is already doing its job. We have not changed it. It will continue. It will come up with the policy that will go to the executive, and then it goes to the legislature for adoption, and thereafter to be operationalized. It is that body, it is that policy that will reorganize the defense and security forces. Will reorganize the security and defense forces. And once they are organized, then this is the time when there will be a new DDR. A new DDR, because it will now be implementing the policies and what will be the composition of all these forces. And any surplus will be demobilized thereafter. By then, all the forces would have been unified. The security, the defense and security forces would have been unified, and thereafter they would be downsized in accordance with the policies and recommendations that will come out from the SDSR board. Now, for the security, we have at present what we call the Joint Defense Board. Joint Defense Board, the word defense refers to the army. But this Joint Defense Board is not for the army only, it is inclusive of the security forces, the police, the prisons, the national security and force. These are not defense forces, they are security forces. But the defense is on the army. So we have decided, we have agreed to call this board Joint Defense Board. We rename it and call it Joint Defense and Security Board. Because once you add the security, then you have included, once you add the S, then you have included the security organs within that body, which comprises of the command of all these units. These units now are the ones that will be in charge of the implementation of the integration, the reorganization, the whatever during this transitional period. This body, we came to realize that it is not performing its functions and duties satisfactorily. So we decided to put above it an oversight body. An oversight body called the Security Sector Reforms and Oversight Commission. This oversight body will comprise of security officers, retired security officers who have become experts in this particular field. These are the people who will oversee the implementation of this work. Once there is no movement over there, then they will be overseen and directed to act. This body is also answerable to another body. We found that NTC was not delivering. So we came up with a new body in the place of NTC called the National Implementation and Oversight Mechanism. This mechanism will be overseeing the performance of the security sector as well. On the other side, there is also what we call the governance sector. Oversight Commission on the other side. This oversight will be done under, these bodies will be responsible to or answerable to the NIOC. This NIOC is the body that will be responsible for the day-to-day activities in the implementation of the agreement. Okay, we have come up with that body. What is the mechanism? What is the composition, I mean? This body comprises of South Sudanese, the Kenyan or the Tumaini initiative, and the donor community. These three people will compose this body. Why did we do it like that? We do it like that for the sake of security of the funds that will be deposited into this, because the government will have to deposit its contribution to this body for implementation of the agreement. The donor community, the East African community, and the donor community will deposit their funds into these accounts. Once deposited into that account, 3 people will be responsible for the signing of the checks from this account. These people will be from the NIOC. And one will be a South Sudanese, the other one will be Tumaini, from Tumaini Initiative, who will be a Kenyan. The third will be a representative of the donor community. Because there is doubt. The Kenyans, or not the Kenyans, the international community, the region and the international community had been asking us, what is the guarantee that all these things we are saying will find their way to implementation? And what is the guarantee of whatever funds that we may raise? What is the guarantee that it will not be misused and spent outside what it was meant for? So we decided to come up with this mechanism so that it is in charge of day-to-day activities. And whenever a check is needed, money is needed for any function, it must be signed by these three people. These are people who will be signatories to the account. If anything happens, then the international community will be there to answer. The Tumaini Initiative will be there to answer. The government of South Sudan will be there to answer. And above this body, we have come up with what they call the National Leadership Council, NLC, Muj NLC bita SPLM. We have come up with the National Leadership Council. This National Leadership Council comprises of the president, the first and the vice presidents, and three signatories from the would-be Tumaini consensus. We have named the agreement that we'll be signing as the Tumaini consensus. Tumaini in Kiswahili means hope. So we have called it Hope Consensus, or Tumaini Consensus. This consensus, which will be signed by the parties, is the body that will actually take charge and be responsible in the region for this process. So above the NLC, there is another body set up called the panel? The high level panel. High regional panel. Okay. This panel is composed of what? Composed of the President of the Republic of South Sudan, the President of Kenya, and heads of states in the region. This is a high-level body that will be in charge of the implementation and oversee all these mechanisms which are set up to the bottom. This is what we have agreed upon. However, there is some concerns about the naming of the National Leadership Council. And people are unable to differentiate between the National Leadership Council and the presidency, because the presidency is included in this National Leadership Council, plus others, plus a signatory of the government, signatory of the opposition, and a stakeholder, which is the civil society. These three people will be represented in the NLC. So people are unable to understand it, and according to the writings of Atanyuek, he calls it another presidency. That was his own interpretation, of course, and he has the right to understand anything the way he wants. But this is not what we meant. And it will not be the presidency, because the presidency stands alone as a presidency, as an institution. This is just like, say, the National Security Council, which is a body established here in South Sudan. It is a mechanism on security. it is not presidency. So that should not be understood that way. However, this NLC, the name itself is causing a problem, and we are considering changing the name so that people do not mess up. Sometimes they say, dema SPLM dema chokol bita SPLM. Shankete Jabu National Liberation Council. All the parties into liberation councils, by the way. But in order to avoid that confusion, we may review that if necessity requires. This is what we have done on the side of security. On the side of governance, we have come up with a body equivalent to that of oversight in the security sector. And this oversight will have to look into mechanisms that have nothing to do with the security, like the constitutional making process and the rest. These mechanisms that fall under this, under it fall the elections and the rest. Population census, all these are mechanisms that fall under the governance with the same oversight. So that is what we have come up with. I would also like to brief you about the constitution-making process. Constitution-making process, of course, it is started here, and it is a process ongoing. It was reconstituted, as you know, and it is continuing now with the process. And we have agreed that the NCRC should be reconstituted to include the opposition. This is what we have agreed. But that is not the problem. Our major point of a disagreement is this. The opposition is saying that the constitutional making process should be conducted in Kenya. Should be conducted in Kenya. In phase 1, up to the drafting of the text, should be done in Kenya. After that, it will be brought to South Sudan. This is their position. We are saying no. Constitution making process is a process that is done by the people of South Sudan, owned by them. So there is no way we can draft it outside South Sudan. They said the Constitution of Kenya was drafted in Britain, Constitution of Somalia was drafted in Kenya, and they quoted so many others. But it turned out that those constitutions were for independence. For us, we came up with our interim constitution. We drafted it here in South Sudan. What is that can make us go outside and started drafting our own permanent constitution? Yes, give us your expertise, your technocrats and so forth. Give us your even financial support so that we draft the constitution of the Republic, the permanent constitution of the Republic of South Sudan here in South Sudan, owned by the people of South Sudan, from the beginning to the end. They insisted that it must be done, and we said, what about if you do it here and you take it to the South and the people of South Sudan decide to reject it? What will you say? And as such, this is one of the contentious issues, but it is a red line for us. We need to be very clear. There is no way our constitution can be drafted outside South Sudan, because the NCRC is all the time on the ground, consulting the people on the ground on issues that will be included in the permanent constitution. And there is no way you can hold the process in Kenya. And will you be sending people from Kenya to come and consult here? No. So we are saying, instead, we will accommodate you by doing this. After the drafting of the text, the NCRC, in collaboration with the Tumaini initiative, will conduct mini conferences in the refugees camps and in the diaspora. Conduct mini conferences whereby that draft constitution will be subjected to study and scrutiny by them. Whatever observations they make will be noted and then brought back to the people of South Sudan. Whatever observation they make will be noted and brought to the people of South Sudan. In addition to that, this will give them also the opportunity to select their representative to the National Constitutional Conference that will be held here in South Sudan. This is the situation in which we are. We have not agreed so far on this constitution-making process. This is the situation in which we are. My colleagues here, you are most welcome to add to what I have said. And thereafter, we will open up, we'll give our colleagues here the chance to add more, and thereafter we give you the opportunity to ask whatever questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I really don't have much to add, but I will just be complimenting on what our senior minister has just enumerated. Many of you may be asking, what is all this agreement about? Like noted earlier, during the launching of this process in Nairobi on May 9th, it was clearly stated that we should be looking into how do we expedite implementation of the agreements that we have. And based on that, we started discussing how best can we implement the RRCs that has already been signed and any other aspects that have been left out to be implemented. So the whole process of the Tumaini initiative is about implementing what we have already signed in the process. But more important is the difference between the RRCs and the Tumaini initiative. What is it? There are two major areas that we are focusing on, and these two areas are essentially to strengthen the implementation mechanisms that we have. One of it is the oversight. We realized that during our implementation of the RRCs, we had a weak implementation mechanisms, that we did not have good oversight, and more importantly, accountability over it. So we said we should improve on the oversight of these institutions so that they can implement their work. And also in doing so, we also put very strong timelines of when things should happen, even when meetings should happen. That's one part. The second part is we also want accountability. For that purpose, such as if resources are availed, we want to make sure that those resources are used for the purposes they are provided for. The second part, and which is also very important, is the funding. When we signed the RRCs, we were our own. The international community did not come to aid us. So this time around, we said we must be in partnership with the international community. We must work together. We must rebuild our relationships so that they can support us as we walk this journey towards sustainable peace. And these are very important aspects. South Sudan is not an island. We cannot live alone. We must live together with the rest of the world, and we must move together with the rest of the world. As such, it is critical that the international community is with us. And in doing so, we want you also to know that we are working very hard to ensure that our partnership the people who struggle with us during our liberation struggle, even those who have been struggling with us before the liberation struggle, continue to support us so that we can walk our journey to build our nation, to build our state. And this is where we come. So the two very critical parts of this agreement is the oversight mechanism that we are strengthening, the governance sector that Honorable Mwakwe talked about, and the security sector oversight that we have established, the leadership that we established. Like noted earlier, we have removed the leadership from the NTC. We have moved it to the level of the president. So the president will be the one in charge of overseeing the implementation of this agreement. So these are very critical aspects. So we have strengthened these mechanisms so that we move smoothly. We look forward to quick and smooth implementation of both the RRCs and the mechanism that we're establishing through the Tumaini to strengthen the implementation of this initiative. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Good. Yes, Comrade Johnson.
Well, thank you and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Today, we are here to brief you, to update you about what we have been doing in Nairobi in the peace talks. First and foremost, we should appreciate the initiative of His Excellency the President to move the peace talks from Rome to Nairobi. Because in Rome, it has taken us 4 years without any significant progress. So he appealed or requested his brother, Dr. William Ruto, to mediate between the government of RT Gono and the whole art groups and the non-signatories to our axis of 2018. And I think that process is producing positive results. Within the last 2 months, we made real progress with our brothers in Nairobi. Fortunately or unfortunately, we call them brothers without sisters because they don't have sisters in their delegation. But nevertheless,
They have women, but
she left. Okay? We want to tell you that our encounter with them, our brothers there, was very positive. Very positive, and the progress we have made was really made between us and themselves. We were negotiating as South Sudanese, even most of the times without the mediation. And we made progress. Why? Because we were putting the interests of the country over and above our party or petty interests. As mentioned by my colleagues, we covered about 5 protocols, which we would say we shelved them as agreed, and we are still working on the other ones. We have been asked, or we are being asked by the international community, the regional community, what will be different this time from our axis and the Tumaini. Our answer is always that, as mentioned before, we are developing new mechanisms that will strengthen the Tumaini consensus. And notably, we tell them that this current agreement, if we reach it and it is signed, then it will have, one, the opposition groups that have been out and opposing the government will be in the government. So you would have gotten rid of what we call whole art groups or non-signatories. They will be part and parcel of the government thereafter. That is one important point. The second one would be the new mechanisms we are establishing, especially National Implementation Oversight Committee, is to draw resources from the government as well as from the region and international community, which has been difficult for our axis because our axis was not signed by the Europeans, by the Americans, the Troika, but this time around, after we reach this agreement, they will append their signatures, which is a very important point. Not only that, they will also contribute and support the Tumaini consensus with technical support, political support, and more importantly, with financial support. And with those support items, then we will be sure of implementing what has been left out from our axis. And this agreement will move forward. We have some pending issues to be discussed when we go back. And, and we have some differences as mentioned by my colleagues. The issue of constitution being, part of it being conducted in outside the country and part of it inside the country. I think we developed our constitution after the independence here in South Sudan. Unlike the Kenyans, during their independence, their constitution was developed in UK. So now it is time for us to amend that constitution, and we have to do it here. Kenyans also, when they amended their constitution, they did it in Kenya. So there is no parallel. And it is not a big deal. I think we will agree on that one. Part of it is fear that when it is done here in South Sudan, there will be intimidation. People will fear to speak out and tell the truth. But we are taking those fears away when the agreement is signed and when some other measures that will assure them are done. Even in the protocol on trust and confidence building measures, we all agreed that there will be 2 trips to be carried out. One, the opposition leaders, together with our leaders here, and the mediation, or even to the highest body, which is the President of Kenya, will come and visit South Sudan for a day or 2 as trust confidence building. So if that one is carried out, then even it will weaken their claim that the constitution will be done outside the country. And then there will be a reciprocal visit by our leaders here to us in Nairobi to see how far we are going, so that they also give us words of encouragement, and also, not only that, but also assured the opposition parties that we mean business. Another area of difference, which is very minor, is that the commissions my colleagues talk about, they want them to add independent commissions. We have been telling them in law, in name, they may not be put there, but in law, they are always independent. For instance, anti-corruption. Do we call it independent anti-corruption? No, that is an example. On this one, we are also going to agree. The composition of National Leadership Council. In the name, we are almost agreeing, because here, this National Leadership Council is not a substitute for the presidency, which they thought we were trying to do that. So our presidency, as we speak, remains the same, according to its mandate of our axis. The body we are establishing is a mechanism to oversee the implementation of the agreement. We differ on the composition. For us, we say the 6 members of the presidency should be members of that body. For them, they are saying the president, the first vice president should be members of that body, plus signatories to our axis and signatories to Tumaini. Those are slight differences, and when we go back, we will clear that one out. And that body is important because it will include the opposition to oversee the implementation of the Tumaini initiative. The last 2 issues, we have not touched them, and that is the issue of the period of transition. How many years? Is it 2, 3, or whatever? We have not discussed it officially, but between us and the opposition and the and the mediation, we will not differ much. The ideas being floated are that it may be 2 years, it may be 3 years. And when we come to that, we are sure that we will find a solution to it. The last one is the governance and responsibility sharing. When we sign an agreement with them, they will be part and parcel of the government, the RT Gono. So we are expecting them, and we have been telling them, please tell us, what do you want us, what are your demands to participate in the government? They say they hold it as the last issue to be discussed. But in that light also, we have agreed with them that all the mechanisms, both security and political mechanisms, they will be reconstituted so that their members are included in those mechanisms. And later on, when they come up with participation in the government at all levels, then they have to state what are their requirements or their demands. They came up with huge demands last time when they talk of a lean government, as explained by my colleague. Okay, their intention was that there will be only president, vice president, and then prime minister. They wanted to introduce the position of prime minister, which to them they will hold that position. We talked them out of it, and it is no longer, we think that they will not come up with it when they come for responsibility sharing. So because of how these things are going, we hope that very soon we will come to an agreement. And that agreement will help the country in moving towards the right direction. We talk about the Troika, the Europeans, the friends of South Sudan, standing aloof when it comes to implementation or signing of the R-axis. This time around, they will come in, and when they come in, then we will work as a team, and that one in itself will also improve our regional and international image. Thank you. Thank you very much, Molana Makoi. I will be very short and brief, because my colleagues have said it all. I just want to answer certain questions when we arrived in Juba, and many people asked, why can this process be different than what we had for the last 4 years in Rome? And the answer is obvious and clear. Our president, Salva Kiir Mayardit, went to Nairobi for the launching. That launching was attended by many of his clerks, the heads of states and government, not only in our region of East Africa, but even from West and South and other parts of Africa, and a huge representation of international community. And the second question is, why is it taking so long in Nairobi than in Rome? In fact, in Rome, a maximum of 7 days, and then you come back. In Nairobi, the engagement is rather different than that. Our problem is an African problem which needs an African solution. So the principal negotiator, or the chief mediator, Simbayo is known to most of you, unless people who are born after a CPA. He successfully negotiated the agreement between South and North successfully. Why not this problem? This was some of the queries the citizens were asking. Also, that you are not informing the public, as Molana have said. People were worried that they were not aware of what is going in Nairobi peace talks, because we kept it quiet, and the only sources was from the opposition. That's why, as Maulana called it, wild rumors, people are even afraid that we have sold the country. Because we were not informing them, and we stayed 2 months without informing our public back home. The reality is also what I said. I don't want to repeat it. We kept silence because you cannot negotiate in the social media. The last thing I want to say is the number of factors that delayed implementation of the peace agreement. First of all, you all know, not only South Sudan, we had terrible the disease which interrupted everything, not in the region, in the whole world. Secondly, there were natural disasters. We had almost 70% of South Sudan submerged by the flood. So it was very difficult for us to implement the peace agreement as quickly as people expected. Thirdly, it's even a man-made disaster, including they themselves. They made these things difficult for peace to be implemented because there were skirmishes of fighting between the government forces and the rebels from time to time. All of you are aware, especially the way to Nimuli, which is our lifeline, and other parts of South Sudan. With that, I want to conclude that there will be peace. Our leadership, led by President Salva Kiir, is interested to bring peace to his people in South Sudan. And this peace is going to be inclusive. Somebody also asked me, why is Thomas Cirillo not there? The answer is clear. Everyone was invited for peace talks. With the exception of General Thomas Cirillo and Ambassador Aban, these were the people who were engaging for the last 4 years in Rome. The reason why they are not present is their own. But the people who represented NAS Revolutionary Council are negotiating with us. These are the people, for their own differences, they said they've overthrown him. And you are also aware that Kenyulo Guro also have now claimed that he has overthrown Thomas Cirillo. So for their own internal problems, he was not able to come. But there is a continuous effort to bring him on board. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, to bring our conclusion to this press conference, I would like to clarify something very small, which was said by the Honorable Minister. It is not our mandate to talk about the extension. It will be agreed between the parties. Our responsibility is what has been given to us by the President of the Republic. He doesn't want to leave anybody behind. This will be the last negotiation which can be done outside of the country. We are tired. The next negotiation will be done here in Juba, or Wau, or Malakal, or another city in South Sudan. To say it so, people who we are talking to are Southern Sudanese. General Pagan, General Wuyai, General Paul Malong, and General Stephen Rolnyang, Boy Rolnyang. I believe the others are not general. Kosti and Mario is a general. Okay. Everybody is a general, except me. I'm not a general. Why I'm clearing this, because I don't want things to be taken out of context, is to give an opportunity for people who are here to ask a direct questions. And my colleagues are here to answer with a very sincerity of purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to answer the question asked by somebody in the middle here regarding the Tumaini initiative and RRCs. And he talked about the conclusion of RRCs process. It has been a thorny issue in the peace talks actually on how to synchronize RRCs on one hand and Tumaini initiative on the other hand. But we established a key provision that actually became a turning point. We first defined what is the purpose for Tumaini initiative. Tumaini initiative provides a mechanism for conflict resolution between the RT Gono and holdout groups, those South Sudanese political opposition groups that are still not part of RRCs. That's the sole purpose of Tumaini initiative. But it also provides a platform for positive criticism to RRCs. In other words, it actually provides an opportunity for the parties to generate new ideas on how to move on with the process of peace building in the country. Having said that, the parties also realize, and it's a fact, that there are provisions within the RRCs that have not yet been completely implemented. Either they are ongoing or they are pending. These provisions, put together or read together with the newly introduced provision on the Tumaini initiative, shall constitute the next phase of the implementation. It shall constitute the next phase of the implementation of the peace building and democratization process in the country. Having said that, I would like to emphasize something very important. Political programs are not like food product. You know, if you have like this water, the JIT water, Aquana water, a packet of juice have got expiry date. Medication have got expiry date. But political programs do not have expiry date. As long as the people are there, the problems intended to be resolved by those problems are still persisting, then those solutions remain valid. In other words, I would like to correct a notion that our ASIS is coming to conclusion or our ASIS is expiring come December. Our ASIS is a political program for ending a war that erupted in the country. It has component that deals with the direct violence, issues of war, assault, armed conflict, but it has got also long-term public policy issues that deal with reforms, peace building, constitution-making process, structural reform, policy reform. All these are in our ASIS. So these issues that I've just talked about are not time-bound. They go with human aspirations, and people change from time to time. So as people aspirations change, this program concurrently change. So they get updated, they get amended. They are public policy issues. So they are not like products in factories that are produced, which have got certain chemical composition, with certain lifespan. So with this explanation, I hope I've attempted to answer that particular question regarding the relationship or the nexus between our ASIS on one hand and Tumaini process on the other hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul. And thank you very much. Okay, there is another response to another question.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Well, let me try to respond to two questions. One is, what is the response of the all-out groups? Well, as we explained to you before, you should have known by now that the response was positive. We cannot agree on 5 protocols, very huge ones: security, justice, economy, and transitional justice, without their participation. So the response is positive. That's why we spent more than 2 months discussing. They are also positive to make sure that this process should end the current crisis in the country. The second question is about dissolution of NTC. You were informed before that we are improving the mechanisms of our access. When you talk of dissolution, it gives a negative impression. That is not what we are developing, but we are improving what we have in the R axis. And National Implementation Oversight Committee is intended to strengthen the overall funding of the agreement. That is one part. The second part, what is the fate of the parties to our access? The same parties, we said also that all the mechanisms, whether new or old, will be reconstituted, which means we are adding to those mechanisms the opposition members to be part and parcel of these mechanisms. So parties to the R-axis are also the ones that are going to sign the Tumaini initiative once the agreement is reached. So nobody is going to be left out. These are the two. In addition, you did not talk about JDSB. We improved this mechanism, which is always called JDB, Joint Defense Board. We have now expanded it to include the other security organs. And the aim is that We want concentration on wildlife, on the prisons, on police, on the national security to develop their own sectors. That's why we amended or renamed the JDB to be JDBSB. So we are not taking anything away from that, but instead we are improving those mechanisms so that their performance will be up to date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Martin?
Thank you, Honorable, once again. The questions raised by Sani has partially been answered. Question raised by Obaj for iRadio has been partially answered. Question by Philip Lado has been answered. Question by Taban Gabriel has also been answered. I will only come to the question raised by Dedi Isbon from Classic FM. Your query was, what are plans to bring those who have not joined the process? As a matter of fact, when we went to the negotiation, some of the groups were not even there. It is our effort as a government to ensure inclusivity that we said everybody should be reached out to. And those who have not been reached out to today, we are still working very hard to reach out to them. We want everybody on board, and it's the obligation of the government to ensure that everyone is on board and no one should be left out. What is happening in Yei area is not welcoming, but we'll definitely ensure they all come on board. Those who are still there, the threats that have been imposing, what have been sending out as messages, are a concern to the government, and we shall ensure that we bring them on board. So there are plans. When we are talking to the mediation, anyone who has come up or anyone who is there want to. But we are not encouraging people to break away and form mini groups just for the sake of coming to the peace talks. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anybody? Somebody referred to you?
Yeah. What I say. One of you talked about insecurity in Yei, and people are being used, young men are being picked from their houses. This is not the responsibility of the government, nor of the delegation. All what we wanted is peace for all our people, and that's the directive from His Excellency the President, that everyone should be brought on board. And as we talk here, there is still an effort to reach Thomas Cirillo. But if there are people who defected from them and are forcibly recruiting people in Yei, that is not the responsibility of the negotiated delegation. There are authorities on the ground. There is the county commissioner, there are security officials there. It is their responsibility to protect the people from being taken and forcibly recruited. It is unfortunate that the mass roaming of rebellion for a political end will not save our situation. The message still is clear that everyone must be brought on board, not only Thomas Cirillo, but also those who have not joined the process. The effort is both from the government and the mediation team. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the media, Before we come to the conclusion, I would like to give clarifications, even though responses have been given, but we need to clarify on some of the issues. On the JDB and the JDSB, you see, when you are conducting an amendment, there are two types of amendment. One will be on the substantive amendment, and the other one could be clerical or errors, correction of errors. Yes, correction of errors amounts to an amendment, but it is not an amendment in the real sense. We have called the JDB. The JDB, as I explained earlier, it means the Joint Defense Board. When you call it Joint Defense Board, it is exclusive of the other security sector mechanisms, because they are not part of the defense. So we said this body, its correct name is JDSB, Joint Defense and Security Board. It's not amendment, because we have not interfered with its functions and duties. We only change the name to correct it, so that others feel that they are part and parcel of that mechanism. If it continues to be JDB, other mechanisms will have the right. The police, the prisons, wildlife, fire brigade, national security will have the right to say, we are not part of this institution. And they should have said so from day one, by the way. They should have said so from day one. This is why we had to amend it. We changed the name. We renamed the body, but we did not change any functions or duties. So if that is what you meant by amendment, yes, it is amendment, but is it substantive? So that is what we have done for the sake of the progress. So that is what I can say about it. As to the guidance given us by the presidency, we will not tell you here. This is a negotiating position, so we will not tell you what did they tell us. Yes, they have directed us to move. But this is a negotiating position. We cannot just come and tell you here and then we go to Nairobi. What will we tell them again in Nairobi? We will not tell you here, because we will go and tell the people with whom we are negotiating. So if you want to know it, it is when we come for the next round for briefing that we'll come and tell you what we have done over there and what went with us from here. But as of now, we'll not tell you what it is. The other question was, are these whole-out groups responding to your programs and they are not responding, because this is a negotiating position. This is a negotiation. Even this amendment of the introduction of the S in the JDB is what do you call it? Is an offer from us. They insisted that this body does not include. We said, okay, we have accepted it. Put the S. Once we put the S, yes, it is a credit on our side. And then we move to the others. So we are negotiating. We cannot tell you that they have accepted all that we are saying, but we are negotiating. Because negotiation is a question of give and take, as necessity requires. So the presidency, of course, I will not tell you what they told us. On the difference between the roadmap or the implementation or the high-level implementation panel, or what did they call it? Committee, which is headed by Tutkeo and a membership of others, including me, including him also. We are part of this team, except that we have been held up in Nairobi. We could not come, and they are continuing. They are supposed to present the report. The report is nothing other than evaluation of the implementation of the agreement, so that they tell us, they tell the presidency, how far have they implemented, what are pending, what are those others, and so forth. It is thereafter, when all these things are ready, that they will make a report to the presidency, and the presidency will decide what to do with their report. That is the parties to the agreement. We, the parties to the agreement, are members of this committee. And not that only, even in this room now, we are parties to the agreement. When you see us like this, it doesn't mean that we are one. We are one in government. But within us, there is SPLM, there is IO, there is SOA, there is OPP. But we don't know, you don't know who are we. We are one and the same. We are talking here, sitting here, talking as a government. This is what we are. But if we go down to nitty-gritties, we will know who are we. That is the same thing with the committee, that committee of Tutkev. We are members of that committee representing our parties. So we are doing one and the same. That is one. For us here, we are doing one and the same but a different purpose. Our mission here is to negotiate with these holdout groups and other holdout groups and non-signatories to the agreement, so that we bring them on board, so that we bring peace to the people of South Sudan. This is our task. Those people will evaluate and make their representations. For us, we are negotiating, and we will bring it later. There are some contentious issues. Even if not contentious, even if agreed, we will still bring it here. So we are the same parties, signatory to the agreement, but doing different assignments at the same time. Their task is to evaluate and maybe make recommendations to the leadership, to the presidency. For us, we come and seek guidance because we are negotiating with outsiders. We are negotiating with people who are not part and parcel of the agreement. So we come and seek guidance whenever we need guidance, so that we go and negotiate there. So these are the two tasks, different tasks that we are doing. Even though we are doing one and the same, that is to bring peace to the people of South Sudan, but with different approaches. That is where we are. For those in Yei, for the others who have not joined us, this has been satisfactorily answered, but I would like to add this. Anybody who is still holding out up to now has been officially invited. But there are so many other factors that play around. There are so many other factors that affect the performance of others and the decisions of others. We will not be talking about them, but they are all invited. Thomas Cirillo is invited. He wanted to come, but I don't know, for his own reasons, he decided to go up to Australia. Garidal was invited. He is the only genuine person who wanted to come, but he could not make it. He could not make it because he is in Rabak. And for him to travel from Rabak to Port Sudan, where he would go and take a plane, this route from Rabak up to Port Sudan is blocked by the RSF. So mind to Tariga. Ujesh Mamu Saida Shan Resilo helicopter Shanemshi Shilu. This is why he could not come. Another person who did not come is the son of Johannes Yorismun, Emmanuel. Yeah, Ajawin is the last name. Ismu Emmanuel Johannes Yor Ajawin. Yes. This is the guy who could not come because he knows why he is not coming. He's a politician in diaspora. He has no forces. So he's a politician in diaspora moving with his party or his movement in his back. We have no problem with him. If he comes, we will be welcome. If he doesn't come, he can stay. We are not forcing anybody to come to our peace talks. You invite you, and if you have a spirit of nationalism in you, you will come and join your people. If you don't, we will not force you, because it is not something that we can inculcate into the people. So that is it. So these people have been invited. Anybody who did not turn up, it is up to his own. Those who are doing these things in Yei here, Thomas Cirillo has been overthrown by 2 people. There is a group led by General Mario with us now in Nairobi called the Revolutionary Command Council. This Revolutionary Command Council declared that they have overthrown Thomas Cirillo. What happened?
That is a mistake.
Yeah, well, of course, they understand it. What they did is that they declared that they have overthrown him. And they were invited. When they declared that they have overthrown him and that they are the ones now in charge, we said, okay, come to the peace talks. They are now in Nairobi. After that, General Loborong in Yei area declared that he has overthrown Thomas Cirillo again. So Thomas Cirillo is overthrown again by Loborong. So we invited Loborong to go. Efforts are underway now for him to go. And we will welcome him at any time. So we are inviting everybody. Thomas Cirillo, we have invited him, and his invitation is outstanding. The PCC, the RCC is already there. Loborong Command, when he goes, if he says NAS, what? Because that one is NAS RCC. This one could also be NAS Loborong or anything else. We have no problem with that. We will welcome everybody. So this is what we are doing, and this is a process. And if it is a process, we cannot leave out anybody. And anybody who comes late, we will not tell him that you are late, so we don't need you. We will tell him, yes, you are welcome. And he joins us. And we'll continue with the process. So that is what, this is what we can say about the issues, what is happening in Yei, issues of kidnapping, Databan El Hayat. These are security issues in the first place. And as to whether people are being kidnapped inside Yei, then it is the work of the security organs to protect their citizens. Radio Bakhita, don't put words into our mouth. You have never heard us talking of a resolution. From where did you get it? Don't misquote people when you are attending anything, any function. Quote people as they talk. Quote people as they talk. So when you talk to us about the dissolution of the NTC and creating a new body, we have not talked of a dissolution. We have not talked of a dissolution. But if you want me to give you the correct word, we are transforming NTC into NIOC. If you want us to use the correct terminology, we are transforming it into NTC, NIOTC. Because NIOC will be doing the same functions of the NTC. Except that when you transform it like that, you strengthen it and you give it more powers to ensure implementation. So that is it. Number two, you are saying what will be the fate of the parties. Which parties are you talking about? Which parties are you talking about? Because as of now, the current agreement has parties, and the would-be Tumaini initiative will also have parties. But all these parties are represented. They are not thrown out. And if you have the belief that we have thrown them out, then who is that left to take over? We have not talked of a substitute, somebody to substitute the parties. Because whatever institution, whatever mechanism that will be set up will be a composition of these parties. So, I don't know how did you understand it, but we are clear on that issue. The last question from Shenhua. Where is he? Yes, you are the one who had been raising your hand ever since because of that question. What does it mean that there will be no elections? Is that your question?
The question is, what is the fate of the election?
Okay, what is the fate of the elections? The fate of the elections is not our concern here. You are asking a wrong person. You are asking a wrong person because my duty here is to make you negotiate, is to negotiate with the holdout groups and the opposition, and when we sign the agreement, then the leadership is the one that will decide on the elections. On two counts. The leadership will decide on the elections with the outcome of the Tumaini initiative. The leadership will decide on the elections on the outcome of the report of evaluation. These are the areas, and those to whom this report will be going, it will be going to the presidency. So it is the presidency that it will determine the fate of elections, not us. So you are asking a wrong person, which is ongoing in Kenya, and this is the briefing that we can make to you as journalists so that you disseminate this. You pass this information correctly and accurately without adding your own opinions. Because some of you are fond of interpreting certain issues according to their own understanding. I want you to report this to the people of South Sudan as it is. This is what the ethics of your profession requires. Thank you very much. No more questions. No more questions. Full stop.